Hello and welcome everybody to the Gambit Guide, and today we continue our lesson about our course about the 4 pawns attack in the Alekhine defense. So the last time we were considered that after e4 knight f6 probably the 4 pawns attack after e5 knight d5, d4 d6, c4 knight b6, f4 could be considered as one of the most dangerous threats for black in the Alekhine defense. So we studied it after f takes e5, d takes a5, f takes e5, and knight c6. White cannot play knight f3 since bishop g4 just gives black clear counterplay against the white's pawn center. But move bishop e3 force black's bishop to be developed on f5, and after knight c3, e6, knight f3, black usually plays bishop e7, and now instead of the classical and the standard way, bishop e2, then short castling, etc. Of course, white could try very aggressive attempt to fight for advantage after d4, d5. So the last lesson, the previous lesson, we looked at the outcome after e takes d5, c takes d5, and knight b4, after which we came to conclusions and move knight d4 leads to very strong attack for white. So for black it's extremely difficult to play this position. So that's why after d5 black usually not capturing on d5 but trying to play knight b4 instantly. From one side, pawn on d5 is not hanging anymore, but at the same time black is preventing white from this very important resource, bishop b5 check, which just bring black's king a lot of troubles. So bishop b5 is a very tempting move, which allows white to castle very fast. So it's quite difficult to play in the with the black pieces after e takes d5. That's why knight b4 become more, I would say, dangerous move in this position. So white already from here it's clear that white is having only two normal opportunities. So let's say we can play or knight d4 or rook c1. And I could tell you that even today's theory is not answering clearly on that question. So also after rook c1 the position is quite good for white, but even in the line knight d4, which considered not the strong, today, thanks to the I would say quite modern analysis, we could tell that this knight d4 quite ambitious moves also brings white serious dividends. So let's look first of all what is the main ideas of both moves. So after knight d4 and bishop g6, white is intending to play a3. So it seems that black's position is very dangerous. Where to go with the knight? If knight goes to a6, white simply could capture on e6. Because black not captured on d5 yet. So the only answer here is a counterattack. So black must play c7, c5, and this is the main and the most dangerous attempt for black to fight for the initiative by using the counter-attack over the white's position in the center. Let's say after a takes b4 and c takes d4, it's not so clear how white could play. Bishop takes d4 could be just answered by short castling. Black is intending to play bishop takes b4. Black is intending to play e takes d5. White's center becomes just really weak, really unprotected. And now we can see, we can tell that also black is having some kind of development advantage. So white's only chance in such a position is to play knight takes e6. And after f takes e6 to play a takes b4, which looks to very, very complicated situation. And for many years, the theory of this line was not so developed, and is based on the game between Collado against Smakel, which was played in the already more than 35 years ago, 1973, which continued knight b5, short castling, knight d4, and black found extremely strong and powerful move bishop c5, just paralyzed white's knight, so white's knight cannot capture on e6 because queen h4 check, g3 and queen e4, and white is just losing immediately. So this line was considered as much better for black, because in the game happened bishop d3, which is just leads to immediate lose after bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, and queen h4 check. So remember this idea, it's very, very typical, very natural idea in the Alekhine defense when we play f4 too early and black just achieved to open the center. So this queen h4 tactical idea is just could be very, very useful in many lines. So you have to look out after all these threats. So the position, pay attention once again to this position after knight takes e6, f takes e6 was considered as not so good for white, and for many, many years white choose here, instead of playing knight d4, to play rook c1. So what is the main point? The main point is that black hardly even could capture on d5, since after a3 there will be already no any tricks with c5, so knight is not on d4, and after black's knight is going somewhere to c6, c takes d5, white is just getting enormous advantage. So it's just almost impossible to play to survive this position. White is having clear space advantage. Knight should go somewhere to b8, then white is just simply bringing this second bishop in the game, or bishop b5, or simply bishop e2 short castling. Possible also to play knight d4, transposing into the normal line when black is just having a lot of troubles. So that's why after rook c1, black almost forced to do something extraordinary. So he plays inside position f6, and this happened in the game between Georgi Tringov and Rodriguez in the Capablanca Memorial 1971. After a3, knight a6, black is just fighting for strong counterplay. So black is trying to destroy white's center. So in this position, the Anatoly Karpov second Grandmaster Zaitsev found quite interesting continuation. g4, sacrificing one more pawn, but after bishop takes g4 and rook g1, white is getting additional fight in order to attack black's position on the king side. So, and thanks to the strong center and bad position of black's knight on the queen side, so white is just developing his strong pressure on the king side. So let's say here after f5, h3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, short castling, white could lift the other rook to the king side attack after rook c2 with idea rook g2, with a clear superiority for white, which happened as a game between Velimirovich and Gibbs Lee's Gavana 1971. In case of bishop h4 check, so of course white cannot capture the bishop because bishop takes d1, so white's queen is hanging, but king e2, king d2, bishop h5, rook takes g7, e takes d5, c takes d5, and suddenly knight takes d5 leads to the losing position after queen a4. This is what happened in the game Tringov against Rodriguez from the same tournament in Gavana 1971, Capablanca Memorial. So black is losing his bishop on h4 without any compensation. So this is new development of in this line, especially this just greatest idea g4, bring white just a lot of I would say successful, a lot of success in all this variation, and f6 black just started to play less and less in the today's tournament practice. So I could show you a few more examples. So after bishop takes h5, rook g1, bishop h5. It's not necessary to capture on g7 because bishop g6. So white simply could continue developing after bishop e2. F takes e5, and here also knight takes e5 deserves serious attention, but also after knight g5, looking at e6 square, white is having enormous attack. For instance, bishop takes e2, queen takes e2, bishop takes g5, rook takes g5, and all black's king side is under strong pressure. After short castling and queen g4 and e6 pawn under threat, later on white could play c4, c5, gaining more space, more advantage. In general, black's position here in all this line very, very difficult. I would not recommend you to look these lines, since let's say after queen f6, white could come with knight e4, queen check, king d2, and black is almost in losing situation just immediately after the opening. So since white found this g4 idea, f6 move become less and less popular, and today I would say almost everything is based on the position after e takes d5, like we saw. a3, and black has interesting counter sacrifice, so black would play c5, intending to bring the knight back to c6. At the same time, after a takes b4, d4, one of white pieces is gone, and black is ready for go for short castling, and this probably is the best line for black in the line after a rook c1. So one of the game between Koide Kulowitz versus Peter Anders and Chemit's Open Tournament in 1997 continues here. Bishop takes d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop g6, c5. And white got quite serious advantage because same idea, bishop b5 check is coming. Let's say after knight d5, bishop b5 check, king f8, and short castling, white got quite clear superiority, since same old idea knight a6, even here, is quite a serious threat against black's threats, like, I mean, black's intents like knight e3, etc. So knight a6. It's also possible in this position to play queen f3, which is also quite strong, because black cannot capture on c3, since knight a6 leads to clear win for white, and knight c7, rook d1, the position also cannot be called a serious improvement for black. Let's say after c5, black also tries here to play bishop g5, so maybe the strongest continuation. And after rook a1, knight e5, so here bishop b5 check. Quite interesting continuation, but even white is having here extra pawn. The position is less clear than in all other lines we saw with g4. So once again, I would like to draw your attention to the black's interesting resource c7, c5. A takes b4, d4, bishop takes d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and here, as we saw, so black could play bishop g6. By the way, in one of the games happened queen b8, it's trying to attack white's pawn on e5 instantly, and after knight takes f5, check on e5, bishop e2, queen takes f5, c5, white still keeps better chances in the game. Winterden against Appel in the German Bundesliga 1993. Anyway, I would like just to show you that even knight d4 today, modern practice shows that even after knight d4, white's position is quite strong. So you can in generally use your analysis for testing the both continuations. Also knight d4 and also rook c1 in case black does not capture immediately the pawn on d5. So knight d4, bishop g6, a3. So after d5 and knight b4, I would recommend you also to look at not only on rook c1 line, which we studied just, but also pay more attention to knight d4, because today's development of today's theory shows that even after knight d4, the position is quite dangerous for black. Bishop g6, a3, c5. So once again, for white it is extremely dangerous to capture here the knight after a takes b4, because c takes d4, queen takes d4, and bishop takes b4. And in case d takes, queen takes d4, bishop takes d4, and short castling, black is having very significant pressure over the white's position. So e takes f7, bishop takes f7, black at least equalizes here. So intending rook d8, rook e8, the pawn on c4 is hanging. Black is having very good development, so which of course easily compensates black's material disadvantage. So knight takes e6 is almost necessary in this position. So black has no time for knight c2, definitely, because queen takes c2, and black's queen on d8 is still hanging. So black must accept sacrifice, and after a takes b4, c takes b4. We studied that knight b5 could be very, very dangerous for white. Indeed, the development of latest development here of knight a4 ideas just changed the evaluation a bit. Short castling. It deserves also attention to play knight d7, but of course the position is still very, very complicated, but better for white. After short castling, knight takes b6, a takes b6, rook takes a8, queen takes a8. White has a chance to fight for advantage after bishop e2. It's also possible to play d5, d6, but it leads to the very complicated situation after bishop d8, bishop e2, and queen a2. White cannot castle yet, and at the same time black is intending queen takes b2. So bishop e2 deserves serious attention. After queen a2, and only now d6, bishop d8, and bishop d4, white is still keeping slightly better chances, intending to exchange black's active rook after rook f1, and thanks to the strong pawn on d6, and in the future, of course, white could play b3 or queen d2. All black triple pawns on the queen side could become just very good targets for our pieces. So if you're not so happy about this knight a4 move, that, as I said before, it would be good opportunity for you to study more the lines with rook c1. Recommendation of Grandmaster Zaitsev. And of course after e takes d5, a3 to get clear advantage, of course, and after f6 to come here with a great surprise for your opponent and to play g2, g4. Definitely here this line should be analyzed very, very carefully, and black also could play bishop g6, black also could play bishop take g4, as we saw. After rook g1, white is having extremely dangerous attack on the king side. So after, of course we have to play a3, and after knight a6 to play g4. So I believe that also when Alexander Morozevich plays this dangerous, I would say, in very complicated line, so he also intends here, of course, to play rook c1 and only then to play a3, and keeping, of course, this g4 idea in mind. So today we just finished more or less White's main ideas in the 4 pawns attack, and I believe you enjoyed the lesson today and you're ready to start using this quite interesting, complicated line in your practice, and I believe you would enjoy also to get some points. Thanks everybody for watching, and see you next time. If you have any question, you can contact me on www.chesslessons.wordpress.com. So any request, any interesting variation to analyze. So by the way, I got a lot of feedbacks from the chess fans who asked me to analyze the 4 pawns attack because it's very energetic, very interesting, and with these 2 lessons I believe that we complete our task, just to have the overview about the main ideas of how to face the Alekhine defense with the 4 pawns attack. See you next time. Bye everybody.